Before I start this video, did you know if you hit the little subscribe button, you'll stay up to date with all my videos? If you click that like button and comment something, more people will see it. Actual life hack. Fuck me. I can't say a life hack. Anyway, enough shilling. On with the video. Man, Sonic the Hedgehog, huh? What a guy. He destroys a giant egg and doesn't really afraid of anything. It's been kind of a crazy ride ever since the Sonic renaissance in the early 2010s. We've had bad games, bad shows, bland games, good movies, but as somebody who was actually around for the 2000s constant stream of Sonic games, there is a part of me that misses the constant stream of Sonic spin-off games. Waiting 5 years between mediocre games isn't really doing anything for me and is making me long for a time where we get mediocre games every year. The big difference here being that there was at least something to do between mainline titles. Honestly, I don't think anybody would have seen it coming that Sonic Generations would mark a huge change to how the Sonic franchise was handled, and Generations was 10 years ago. So, with good old Iizuka the Moon just turned around Takeshi stating that he wants Sonic Frontiers to be the groundwork for the next 20 years of Sonic like Sonic Adventure was, I figured it's a good time to look back on the 20th anniversary, the sheer hype that came with it, the ups, the downs, and just a nice trip down memory lane of a simpler time. 2011, the year that we were all sort of worried about the world ending a year later. Everybody was busy party rocking because the radio played nothing else, and Sonic Colors had restored some faith in the Sonic franchise. Ignoring the mistake that was Sonic the Portable and the Force Connect Sonic Rider sequel, there was a weird aura of positivity surrounding the franchise, which came to a head in 2011, because on June 23rd, 2011, Sonic the Hedgehog would celebrate his 20th anniversary. And on April 8th, 2011, a video was uploaded to social media. 20th anniversary, Sonic teaser. And oh boy, nobody was expecting what would come out of those 50 seconds of CGI footage. While it's a distant memory at this point, there was once a time when classic Sonic wasn't a thing. Sure, weird fans would argue over green eyes and black eyes, but as far as it mattered, classic Sonic was essentially just a different art style. And that all changed when that chubby little bastard graced our screens in full CGI. And man, the hype was insane. Whoa, wait, why is 2D Sonic there? Is he in the game? Is this just implying there's two gameplay styles in one Sonic? Why is Green Hill Zone all white? Is it because Sonic colors at every color? What is going on? Is this game Sonic White? Speculation ran rampant, and the next 11 days felt like an eternity to baby me. Impatiently looking at every piece of info that dripped out of the internet, and on April 19th, Sonic Generations was officially announced, bringing back 2D Sonic and reimagining classic stages into 3D. And like that, the hype was popping off. Made by the Unleashed team, who after 2008 immediately started working on this project, it was a really exciting time for fans both old and new. What stages would come back? What characters would come back? If Classic Sonic is a thing now, does that mean Adventure Sonic is a thing? Is there a hidden third Sonic? Speculation ran rampant, and in retrospect, it wasn't really that long until our next look at Sonic Generations. E3 2011 rolled around and we were treated to another CGI trailer, now showcasing the so-called Dreamcast era, showing the two Sonics running through City Escape from Sonic Adventure 2, and a few days later, on June 23rd, a demo featuring Classic Sonic and Green Hill Zone was posted, missing the modern Sonic portion, unless you had a mod PS3. It was the first proper taste most people could get of Sonic Generations without spending money on tickets to Los Angeles or London. And as the months went on and more trailers were released showing off more and more of the game, the hype among Sonic fans was at a maximum. Thanks to the demo, we got hard confirmation that while not one-to-one, Classic Sonic was practically the same as he was in the 90s, albeit with a few changes, like an instant spin dash button from the adventure games. Sure, some fans decided that it was worth moaning about the fact that Sky Sanctuary wasn't yellow enough, but honestly, outside of nitpicking like that, it was a good time. Personally, I couldn't have been more excited, literally counting down the days to November 11th, 2011. And so, spring became summer, summer became fall, and fall became the longest few weeks of my life as I was impatiently waiting for a game about two blue hedgehogs going through time. And then, the unthinkable happened. Suddenly, out there in the wild, what's that? Oh no, it's a leak, and people got their hands on the game early, and it wasn't that bad. We'd practically already seen the full game by that point, and really the only thing it could have leaked was whether or not there was a supersonic boss fight in the game. Other than that, SEGA had done a pretty good job themselves spoiling the entire game in the run-up to its actual release. However, surprisingly, Sonic Generations did exactly what you think an anniversary title would do. There was a pretty big surge in people who hadn't played a Sonic game since the 90s picking up the game and enjoying it. And so, November 11th rolled around and people finally got their hands on Sonic Generations. Baby fans got their first taste of a proper 2D game since the 90s. Older fans got to re-experience the golden days in a fresh coat of paint. And everybody in the middle just enjoyed themselves. And the game was honestly just fun. It was very obvious that Sonic Team had spent the last 5 years looking at feedback from Unleashed and properly fleshed out what worked for that game. The modern stages, while still using the 3D and 2D style that Unleashed used, the 3D segments were compared to colors, but a lot more fleshed out. No longer automated segments that required minimal input from the player, and instead having actual platforming sections in 3D that required actual timing to properly pull off. Stages like Sky Sanctuary and Rooftop Run showed off just what Sonic Team was capable of when they knew what they were doing. Every stage was lovingly recreated in both classic and modern styles, and you could tell a lot of passion went into every single detail that most people wouldn't bat an eye at. However, then you have people like me. The missing and wanted posters in City Escape, the truck escaping its 2D jail to try and kill classic Sonic, and suddenly having rocket boosters because modern Sonic has a boost button now. Spagonia, no longer plagued by Dark Gaia, has air balloons and confetti everywhere through the air. You could switch tubes in Chemical Plant 3D, break bridges in Green Hill, hit bells in Speed Highway 2D like at the end of Speed Highway and Adventure. You can feel soul ooze in every bit of this game, and it was super obvious that everybody working on this project was giving it their all. I am honestly not afraid to say that Generations is probably the best 3D Sonic game of all time. Adventure might have been my first Sonic game and will always hold a place in my heart, but Generations is just a well-made, properly fun game that can be enjoyed even 10 years after release. Whereas Sonic Adventure, my sweet, has been showing its age for the last 15 years. So, I want to deep dive into exactly every era and stage and why this game still outshines what came even after 10 years later. Ah, the classic era, where deep Sonic lore was being sprinkled here and there and completely ignored in the West because you can't have a Japanese IP in the West. Better change that name from Eggman to something vaguely Russian because, well, the Cold War. When Sonic was cool, groovy, with just a dash of attitude that screamed, yeah, what of it? The classic era is arguably the most diverse of the stage selection in Generations. Green Hills, a chemical plant, and Sanctuary in the Sky. Sky Sanctuary. 3 of the most iconic stages in all of Sonic history at the time, and we didn't feel like groaning when they reused Green Hill Zone again. Alongside these 3 full stages, we got Stardust, Speedway, Bad Future, and Death Egg back in the form of boss arenas. So all 4 main classic Sonic games were there and accounted for. And honestly, what can I really say about the classic levels that haven't already been said way better? The team lovingly remade these stages with brand new additions for both classic and modern Sonic. Green Hill Zone once again starts off as a perfect first stage, easing you into the gameplay and showing you every main element you'd be seeing in the game. Multiple paths, they're accounted for. Red rings for you to find, right there. Higher, harder routes and lower, easier routes, all there. Modern Sonic's version of Green Hill Zone also introduces you to what the game will throw at you. Realistic grind-on, giant automated loops, 3D halls where you can boost through enemies, the trick system, sliding, wall jumping, stomping, and everything you'd expect in a modern Sonic game from the early 2010s. Although, you do spend a good balance time in 3D and 2D in most stages, as opposed to other modern games. Chemical Plant Classic already switches the style up a bit, with more platforming and water gimmicks to slow you down, although the game still makes an effort to make the speed the name of the game. Everything from Chemical Plant is here that you remember. Rising chemicals, little blue orbs that go brrrr, switching to tubes and riding inside of them. Chemical Plant Modern is pretty damn fun. Same like Classic, it introduces water as a hazard to avoid. But to stay true to the Classic version, you can jump to different tubes for different routes, which is something that is just so appreciated. It also incorporates more classic elements by making you dodge the blue blobs while free-falling. The plant also starts exploding around Sonic the further you get into the stage, which is a very nice touch. Sky Sanctuary Classic got a pretty damn nice facelift, though some people were upset about the lack of yellow in the brickwork. The Death Egg rising, the Sanctuary crumbling, and the Egg Robos are straight out of the original, and it's absolutely lovely. Included in there are also extra paths with the floating orbs from Sonic 3's Marble Garden Zone, multiple routes for collectibles leading you to replay the stage at least 3 times to finish the game, each run showing you a new different route to the stage, throwing you through windows and all that fun stuff. There's also a cute reference to Kingdom Valley from Sonic 06 and Sky Sanctuary, where one of the glass windows breaks and you kind of see the inside of this like little circle area, and it's like sort of based on like this one area where you fight a bunch of enemies in Kingdom Valley. It even has like Silver's little like ESP sign. I thought that was really cute. I kind of forgot to write it in a script, so I'm adding this in post. Sky Sanctuary Modern is another great example of 3D level design. Minimal 2D sections and multiple paths in 3D offering different ways to get to the end of the stage. It also gives you the perspective of going inside of the sanctuary instead of just skirting around the edges, allowing you to grind on the railing in the buildings and giving you a nice shaded and cyan colored look at the ancient architecture. Dashing through the levels as the path behind you starts crumbling. Both Classic and Modern end their stages with a throwback to the original stage end of running up a crumbling spiral to get onto the Death Egg. The Death Egg itself is given a new facelift, starting off in an elevator as a bit of a red herring, luring you into thinking you're going to just be hitting the now even more thick and massive Death Egg Robo, but after 2 hits against this giant fat ass, you're flung into a new area, making you lure the robot's arm onto bombs so you can attack the head. All in all, it's a cool redesign of an iconic boss fight, and it's making use of the 20-year difference in technology. Classic Metal Sonic is fought in Stardust Speedway Bad Future, which makes sense considering it's technically part of a timeline where Eggman won, and while the original stage was a race through Stardust Speedway, this has been instead made into somewhat more of a fight. You bash into Metal Sonic 3 times, he uses some cool electricity attacks, and that's really all there is to it. A decent early on rival fight. And that's the Classic era, some of the most iconic areas in Sonic's history in full-blown HD, and while 2 specific stages would overstay their welcome in the coming years, back then it was something special. Each stage was beautifully redone to show off all the new stuff they couldn't years ago, and while there is a bit of lack of titles like 3D Flicky Island and the Sonic and Tails series, I suppose that will be a bit too niche in a game about celebrating Sonic's main history. There is also a cute interaction with modern Sonic and Tails about the chemical plant being eerily familiar and giving Tails a bad feeling. Sadly, this will be the last time the characters actually reference the stage you're in, but, you know, whatever. We also get a cute reference moment of Sonic looking at his classic self in the mirror. Also, Classic Tails just kinda shows up afterwards, but, you know, what's done is done. So, moving right on to the era that has a representative Sonic missing, no matter how hard people tell you that Modern and Adventure are the same, they weren't back then, and I'll never forgive them for not giving me full 3D stages with Adventure Sonic. But whatever, let's move on into the era that introduced me into the franchise, full of attitude, cool 90s vibes, and rock like you wouldn't believe, the Adventure era. Or the Dreamcast era if you want to be that guy. So, starting off the Attitude Era right, we're thrown into Speed Highway from Sonic Adventure, and Act 1 is a pretty cute way to translate the stage into 2D. You're immediately flung into a downwards road, much like the original. Now obviously, with a 2D point of view, they had to work around the tunnels and stuff from the original by just removing half of them. Classic stage has a cute nod to the original stage by letting you interact with the clock bells and them dropping rings, like at the end. It's cute. I really like that. They didn't need to do that, but they did. Speed Highway Act 2 has you racing through the highway alongside the cars that are somehow traversing actual loops, jumping from road to building and back. Obviously, they couldn't remake Speed Highway without throwing in the running down the building section from SA1, and it's a little... well, it's different, is what I'll say. Using the new control scheme, they just turned it into a quick step section, which I guess makes sense because the original was just like going left and right while auto running, but I honestly think that it just lasts a little too short and doesn't have the same impact as the one in Adventure, though you do end the stage at dawn, which is a nice touch. And of course, up next is the ever iconic and always referenced City Escape. The first stage of Sonic Adventure 2 went a little jarring after a city stage, but you know, what are you gonna do? Classic City Escape introduces the rail grinding for Classic officially, because of course you can't have an SA2 stage without the rail grinding. Classic just kinda rolls on the rail, which is pretty cute I guess, considering he didn't get the practice with the soap shoes yet. The truck makes a return as well, breaking the boundaries of 2D to completely and utterly destroy Sonic, because Gun has a fucking vendetta. Classic also gets to skate around like his modern self, albeit with an actual skateboard instead of a ripped off piece of airplane. Speaking of modern, his stage starts like the original with Sonic snowboarding down San Francisco. In a complete facelift, you're now able to grind over power lines and drift through gun necks. The stage itself is another loving reimagination, featuring the gun enemies from SA2 and of course another chase by the gun truck, who apparently realized that Sonic has the boost now, and decide to implement a giant fuck-off rocket booster to chase Sonic onto the buildings and walls. Yeah, Gun really wanted to cover up that Project Shadow business, that they're willing to just destroy the homes of people to catch Sonic. They're actually insane. To represent Sonic heroes, we got Seaside Hill, which isn't like the worst hero stage, I guess. Personally, I would have gone with something like Mystic Castle or maybe Egg Fleet to not have another opening stage in there and have some variety in locations, but whatever, hindsight I guess. Classic Sonic's stage features a few gimmicks from other water stages like Labyrinth and Hydrocity. Classic also has the ability to run over water, but it doesn't really get used. Classic also gets the rock party of the original stage, but he also gets some help from his future arch-nemesis, the Orca. Modern Sonic gets to show off his new moves by either following the path as intended, or taking a detour dashing over water to get through the stage, but go out of bounds and you'll be chased by a giant chopper. Sonic also gets a new version of the
This turtle is swimming with a block on his back
by either being thrown into a car section or taking a more platforming route via the turtles. And speaking of water, the Perfect Chaos boss battle is a perfect representation of what 3D Sonic boss fights can be, instead of just hallways. Obviously, Sonic doesn't have the Chaos Emerald. What to do with all this thunder, rain, and lightning? Dash through the city like a fucking madman, that's what. The Perfect Chaos boss fight perfectly uses 2D and 3D to make a memorable midway boss fight, complete with Crush 40 remixing Open Your Heart. Perfect Chaos also finally fully realized with armor like originally intended. Honestly, I would argue this is the best 3D Sonic boss fight of the 2000s. The Shadow rival fight also gets a nice facelift. Taking place on the Arc like the original, it features Sonic and Shadow racing for purple orbs of mysterious energy to supercharge themselves. Shadow is now also sporting a boost, despite this taking place in Sonic Adventure 2. Collect the orbs and get the boost in the Shadow and knock him out. The actual stage obviously now features actual stage hazards and isn't just an unending line of platforms in the middle of space. I don't really have anything else to say about the fight, like, it's an upgraded version of the original with all the new bells and whistles you'd expect. The Adventure era honestly feels like it misses a proper representation in the Sonics. Unlike the classic and modern era having their own playstyles represented, the Adventure era doesn't get this because of the lack of fully 3D stages. Obviously, this has its reasons I'll mention later on, but still, the stage selections we're given for the Adventure era are fine, but 2 city stages and a Sea Palace are just a little... Well, for the midway point of the game, we're usually treated to something more out there. You know, casinos, ghost castles, and all that good stuff. Still though, the stages are iconic for a reason, that's why they're in the game. So, moving on to the third and final era of the game, the modern era, we'll get to see such beloved games like Unleashed, Colors, and something I'm forgetting? I don't know, I feel like a whole page is missing from my memories. I wonder why. Let's just skip right in. So, in a completely unfamiliar set piece, we start off in another city stage, albeit on fire. Classic Crisis City features everything you'd expect. Fire demons, a giant fire tornado, and lava everywhere. You race through the destroyed city in an attempt to find the exit, but as luck would have it, the giant fire tornado just literally picks up the piece of building that the goalpost is on and decides to throw you into one final platforming section, making sure you don't get fried alive by the tornado. Nothing really special in Classic Crisis City, as it's just a 2D remake of the original stage. Got some cute stuff, but nothing really of note. Modern Crisis City features the same stuff only in 3D, and honestly, it's got some pretty good 3D platforming. The stage, once again, doesn't really have anything special going on for it, missing the entire racing down the track thing that 06 did, you know, to call back the City Escape, though I suppose they did just do that in City Escape and it would feel a little out of place. But it does feature a race towards the giant tornado that you're running away from in 06. Plus, you get an achievement for dodging the cars that are flung at you. So, you know, nice bit of fan service. Once again, nothing really special in this stage, and that's sadly the case for most of the modern era stages. Classic Rooftop Run, or Orange Roofs, if that's your cup of tea, is a bit of a reimagining of Spagonia. Classic Sonic runs through a bit of the hub area, now more lively than ever with the inclusion of air balloons and all that stuff. Eggman also decided this would be a good place to just drop the flying battery again because man just don't know when to quit. Modern Rooftop runs such the same way as the original, but quickly diverts with multiple routes and all that fun stuff. Following basically the same path as the original, you're going up, down, and all around the stage. Ending in a chase towards the flying battery, the modern version also incorporates the hub world a little bit by having you briefly go in front of the university before crashing into someone's house. Both Rooftop Run Classic and Modern basically feel like sequel stages to the original. Now with no Dark Gaia destroying the planet, it feels a lot more alive and happy, despite this technically taking place during Unleashed. But asking for consistency in the Sonic franchise is heresy, so moving on. Planet Wispman. I don't like the stage. The two Wisps are incorporated horribly. Classic Sonic is given the Spike Wisp because he already had the Spin Dash, I guess. Modern is given the Rocket Wisp because it's majorly featured in Planet Wisp. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Classic Planet Wisp doesn't really have anything special going on for it. It's just another 2D stage with sadly the weakest platforming sections in the entire game. The orange and green aesthetic is boring and really does not feel like a good final stage to end the game on. The Spike Wisp is used for small puzzles that just grind the game down to a halt, which you could argue is a commentary on Colors itself, but you know, can't talk shit about Colors apparently. Modern Planet Wisp is just the worst. It takes too long, features the most 2D in any modern stage in the game. I legitimately have nothing good to say about the stage. It's really fucking boring the moment you reach the second half of the stage and it becomes boring, archaic 2D platforming. You can really tell that this stage had the least amount of work put into it thanks to the year gap between Colors and Generations. I really wish I had something positive to say about this last stage in the game, but it's just not fun. And the fact that this is the Colors representation, despite Colors also featuring themes like Aquarium Park and Starlight Carnival, ended the game on a bit of a boring green grassland with a giant orange traffic cone is just such a downer. This is one of those cases where instead of going with the popular theme, they should have just gone with a theme more fitting for the final stage of the game. So the Egg Dragoon acts as the second to last boss without the Werehog there. Obviously, they need to remake the boss from scratch like Perfect Chaos, and it's not bad. You switch from 3D dodging explosions to platforming a bit in 2D, and then free-falling to replicate the part of the original Egg Dragoon fight where you fall towards the planet's core as the Werehog. It's pretty alright, nothing too special or too offensive. The Silver Rival fight, however, it's really not that special. Unlike every other boss and rival fight in the game, Silver doesn't get his own proper arena. Instead of Soliana's hub getting a proper arena for Silver, it's just Crisis City, where Sonic never fought Silver. And it's just really nothing special. Just dodge and hit when he's in range. Probably the weakest fight in the game next to Metal Sonic. And then on to the final boss. For the first time since Unleashed, we got a Super Sonic final fight, featuring the two Sonics versus the Time Meter. And it's, well, in true Super Sonic final boss fashion, it's really nothing special. You can switch between classic and modern, but there's really no point outside of dodging specific attacks. There's like no specific classic phase and modern phase, it's just dodge until you can get close. Which I mean is basically the name of the game for super final bosses, but I was at least hoping with time being such a ruined thing, we might have gotten a final area like in Unleashed, where instead of running on the Gaia Colossus, you'd be running towards the Time Meter as all of the stages start merging together. Kinda like the end of the world in 06, but with one big stage instead, before ending in a Supersonic versus Time Meter thing. So, obviously, I don't have as much positive stuff to say about the modern era as I have the other two. However, this doesn't mean I have nothing negative to say about the rest of the game. So, with all that in mind, let's quickly take a look at some of the missers of Generations. Stuff that was, obviously missing from the final game. So clearly, Generations was a great game, but upon release it became kinda obvious there was some stuff missing. For instance, despite the fact that the original teaser trailer showed a White Void Green Hill, every stage you run through is intact. The game points out you return life to the world by running through them, but you only see this in the overworld. While nothing has ever really been confirmed on this front, Generations was probably supposed to have White Void stages initially, with the stage regaining color as you race through it as both Sonics, eventually allowing you to replay them as fully restored stages. And there's a weird lack of story. Despite the fact that the game starts off pretty strong with decent cutscenes, after Chemical Plant's interactions between Sonic and Tails, there's a lack of cutscenes that aren't just, "Whoa, hey, Sonic, she did a great job!" Classic Sonic and Classic Tails don't really interact aside the endings, and Classic Tails just kinda shows up. Despite the fact that CD is in the game via Stardust Speedway in the Metal Sonic rival fight, Classic Amy is nowhere to be seen, nor is Classic Knuckles. The entire last 30 minutes of the story is also just really weirdly cobbled together. The two Sonics restore the Emeralds and go to fight the Eggmans, who then smack the Sonics and they just kind of fall over after running around a bit. Then all the friends show up and go,
"You've got this, Sonic!"
And the Emeralds just appear and they transform into Supersonic, accompanied by the Supersonic theme from Sonic 4, which was so made fun of in Sonic 4 that I'm surprised they even wanted to mention it in the first place. And the final boss doesn't even have a proper vocal theme in a game that celebrates every era of Sonic, which is funny because if you put the Crush 40 and Cash Cast Sonic Boom remix over it, it fits perfectly. Metal Sonic and Shadow both get special arenas for their rival fights based on the original locations, but Silver is just fought in Crisis City instead of Soliana. Modern Sonic gets 2 rival fights and 2 boss fights, but Classic only gets 1 each. Planet Wisp is arguably the worst stage in the entire game, probably due to having the least amount of development time between planning and release. And it has been confirmed that originally there were supposed to be 3 Sonics, with Ryan Drummond having been contacted to voice a potential Dreamcast Sonic. However, he declined and the idea was scrapped. And while the stage list was chosen by an internal poll between SEGA of Japan, Europe, and America, the stage list of Sonic Generations features 4 separate city stages in quick succession. And while I'd be lying if I said that Great Hill Zone coming back for Generations wasn't hype, age just kinda made it less special, especially when every Sonic game chosen to be represented in the game had stage designs that hadn't been reused or would have stood out more on the list. Like, did we really need Speed Highway into City Escape and Crisis City into Rooftop Run? And I say that as somebody who likes city stages. And for a game that was supposed to celebrate all aspects of the last 20 years, the handhelds were absolutely missing outside of music. And while the 3DS version of Generations did feature 2 stages of handheld Sonic games, there was still a lack of representation for the Sonic Advance trilogy or even Sonic Rush Adventure. And the 3DS version itself featured less stages and it kind of felt useless. It doesn't have the same amount of stages as the console version, nor does it really have a difference in playstyle. It's a full 2D game for both modern and classic Sonic, which kinda made having 2 Sonics redundant. The classic stages in the 3DS version were straight up the same level layout as the original games, though to give the 3DS version some credit, bosses in it included Big Arms, Bio-Lizard, and the Egg Emperor. And the Egg Emperor is just one of the coolest final bosses in Sonic history, so my hands are tied on that one. So while I'll happily call Sonic Generations the best 3D Sonic game on HD consoles, the 3DS version itself feels like a cheap budget copy to make sure they had a version of the game for the Nintendo audience, and a lot of things here or there could have been improved on. But all in all, you can ignore a lot of the flaws or even obvious cut content because Generations at a base has so much love and soul poured into it. Could it have used a DLC stage or 2? Maybe a spin-offs and Misfits pack featuring stages from Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic the Hedgehog 4? Sure, I vividly remember people saying they'd happily pay for a DLC pack with more stages, which is kinda ironic considering that SEGA has since decided that good DLC includes Super Sonic, before, rightfully being called out for being greedy. Honestly, to switch it up a little bit, to complain less and maybe give some more ideas, if I was in charge of the Generation stage list, I probably would have made it completely different. My stage list would have featured Green Hill, Chemical Plant, and Lava Reef for the classic era, Final Egg, Pyramid Cave, and Egg Fleet for the adventure era, Crisis City, Eggman Land, and Asteroid Coaster for the modern era. Green Hill is just a bit too iconic to not have as a first stage in a 20th anniversary game, and Chemical Plant is probably the most recognizable Sonic 2 stage that jumps to anybody's mind. Lava Reef acting as a stage where Eggman is resetting up the Death Egg would add some intrigue to the plot instead of just wholesale having it float in the air. While I would say Emerald Coast, I think having stages where Eggman is actively undoing his past failures fits more with the plot, so him undoing his defeat at Final Egg would put that stage up front. Pyramid Cave is the same because, well, I mean, stopping Sonic from reaching a space shuttle would have stopped the end of SA2. Egg Fleet would act as the perfect oh shit moment. Jumping from ship to ship while destroying each one you pass would make a perfect stage. Crisis City doesn't really follow the Eggman undoes his past mistakes, but none of the stages except for Aquatic Base really feature Eggman failing. So for the sake of having a city rep in there, Crisis City is perfect. Eggman Land, I mean, do I even need to say anything else? It's perfect for an endgame stage, plus it would give them a chance to undo the marathon run that is Eggman Land from Unleashed. Classic Sonic taking the Werehog sections, obviously adjusted for the different gameplay, Modern taking his original spot. Asteroid Coaster is the only stage that really fits the end in colors. While I could say Aquatic Park for the theme, or Terminal Velocity for following the Eggman undoing his failures plot, for the sake of not having to create a stage out of what is essentially an auto-scroller or using a theme that just wouldn't end the game with a fizzle, Astro Coaster fits best. Obviously, this is just what I would have done. Other people have completely different ideas. I feel the stage selection would have been a lot more varied as opposed to having 4 out of 9 stages be different flavors of city stages. But hey, if you think of a better stage selection, tell me in the comments. Alright, I have been talking long enough, and I'm sick of the what ifs. Let's wrap it up with one last look back on everything. Man, Generations. What a game. In the course of writing this video, and subsequently rewriting it 3 times, I've come to the realization that Generations really was the last time we had something special. And honestly, I don't care about subjectivity and all that. In the course of this video, I came to realize that we'll probably never have a proper follow-up to Generations, either literally in a sequel, or a game that's like Generations in design and philosophy. Forces follows more in Colors' footsteps with 3D automated hallways and archaic 2D platforming, which, no matter what anybody says, is exactly what Colors was. But to be fair, Frontiers has me cautiously optimistic. And I don't mean that in the sense that we should accept mediocrity. I don't like this weird idea that you have to be positive about everything, and that Sonic Team are a bunch of bored babies who need to be coddled. No, they're fully grown adults who work for a multi-million-dollar company. They want our money and use trailers and footage drops to make us want to buy the game. There's no point in this weird toxic positivity if the game is just another mediocre mess. I know it's a hot take for 12-year-olds, but you can want something better. It's okay to ask for something that's better than good enough. SEGA is, again, a multi-million-dollar company made up of adults, not 5-year-olds, and they can hear criticism. But part of me looks at the Frontiers footage and I can see something there, especially with recently revealed info about different and customizable control schemes. Am I disappointed they seem to have brought back the Generations assets for what are essentially special stages? Yeah, especially because we haven't had any actual new stage ideas in 3D since, well, technically Forces, and those aren't really good. Sonic Mania did give us some cool new areas, but you know, that's stuck in 2D limbo. I don't know, maybe, just maybe Frontiers is something. I'm flip-flopping between each piece of info that SEGA shows. The purpose of this video was to just be a fun look back on Generations, and I think that I achieved that for myself at least. I appreciate Generations that much more 10 years later than I did 10 years ago. And I honestly think that Generations, despite being a fan service anniversary game, is the perfect stepping point for any Sonic fan. It's cheap to get, it's got fun content, and the modding scene will give you extra content to enjoy. The Unleashed project will let you play almost every stage from Unleashed, excluding Eggman Land, though be aware that it's kinda dated and might require an additional mod to work on RTX cards. Hell, there's even a fix for classic Spin Dash in 3D, which wasn't there when the game released. Like, you could play a classic Sonic in 3D, but the moment you tried to use the Spin Dash, it crashed the game. You can literally play all the 3D stages as Santiago himself. All in all, Generations is something special. A great look back on the 20 years that came before, and a love letter to Sonic fans of all ages. And I'm glad it's something that I got to experience when it was coming out. And I hope if you try the game, you enjoy it as much as me. And with that said, thank you so much for watching. I have nothing else to say. I love you.